G'day guys, Chris Story here. Today, this is of course my AFL Fantasy team reveal for season 2022. Of course, this is my initial, team, so it's not how it will be at the very end, but this is what I've decided to start out with. An idea that, or a concept that I've really learnt from Selby, who's the coach of Moreira's Magic, the two-time back-to-back champion of AFL Fantasy, is really you want to pick players with an upside for growth. So even if you're picking premiums, you don't want guys who are at the maximum price. You really want, underpriced premiums. And that doesn't mean you don't have captain options necessarily, but you do want guys who won't be dropping in value essentially. You want really your whole team raising in value so that you maximize every dollar. So here I've got 3K remaining in the salary cap. And going through my defense firstly. So we've got Lockie Whitfield, Jake Lloyd, James Sicily, Wayne Malira, Caleb Marchbanks. So for me, all those guys are on the underpriced side. So looking at, say, a Whitfield, so he should be 100 plus, I'd say. A Lloyd, again, based on his history, you'd expect a 100 plus season. And with Dawson leaving, that should bode quite well. And then on the field, I've decided to start Garrett McDonough as a rookie. So he was actually someone draft eligible. So this is where I'll go into the draft expertise side of things. So he was draft eligible in 2014. Not many people were aware of him. He wasn't really all that closely on the draft radar, but for those who actually watched the TAC Cup closely at that time, he was an absolute gun in terms of what he does with ball in hand. So in terms of quality kicks, he was in that same conversation with the likes of a Caleb Daniel and a Jaden Short. So really, I had those three as the absolute best kicks in that draft. So, and also as the draft was happening live this year, of course, I was live tweeting. So you can see my tweets on McDonough, and you can even see my draft history as to what I was posting back in 2014 on him. But basically, think of him as a Daniel Rich caliber kick who can absolutely generate meaningful drive from defense. So it wouldn't shock me, frankly, if he was playing for Essendon and taking kickouts. So I'd be using him most certainly in defense. That's where he can be an absolute weapon with that drive he generates by foot. So, and at the age he's been picked at, well, of course, he's been picked to play pretty well right away, or that would be the hope. He's an immediate option. So track closely because he's someone where he's certainly got a scoring upside to him. So... and then the bench options. So we've got Will Gould. Hopefully we get to see him this year. From what I understand, he's really been putting work into his body to get into better shape. So, and he's got really that AFL ready body. So another of those really good kicking types. And look, maybe he gets opportunities this year. And if he does, then he's probably a good option for the bench. And I've also gone with Joel Hamling as well. So for me, look, underpriced. I'd imagine he'd be best 22 for Fremantle. I think is a pretty capable piece, so he can intercept a little bit. So for a bench position, he's fine. Ultimately, at the end of the day, very comfortable with that. So moving into the midfield. So you'll see there's a bit of a mid-price flavour, but yeah, look, maybe after the preseason supplemental period, perhaps I do introduce a few more rookies, and maybe I do cut a few of the mid-prices if they don't look all that good during the preseason campaign, and they're not necessarily playing sort of, the prominent sort of roles that would see them score to the level that they can score. So captain Tom Mitchell. So again, I believe is a little bit underpriced. So had a great second half to last year for those people who follow Hawthorn closely. Lockie Neal, of course, had the shocking season. He's a 100 plus. So Matt Crouch, again, absolutely tiny price for someone who can really be a top, I'd say, 8 scorer in the midfield. So I think well priced there. So of course, no games last year. Elliot Yeo, again, I'm seeing that real upside. So again, it's that same upside for growth. Patrick Cripps, same story, underpriced, had a poor season. So if he can get up to that sort of, say, 95 to 100 mark, he's going really well and he's going to make some money. Matt Rowell, very underpriced, just wasn't looking good at all last year when he played. But yeah, look, with a better preseason I'm expecting, he should be fine to go this year and should really get into those... Probably not hundreds, but he could be a 90 average would be roughly what I'd be thinking. And if he does that, he's making you money. And Dan Hannebury. So I'm hearing positive signs through the preseason. So look, if he's looking like he'll play a pretty prominent role for St Kilda this coming year, well, he's one where he could make money and is probably one that would be back of mind for quite a few people, given he has had his injury problems in recent years. But yeah, look, he could be a bit of a sleeper and someone where he might have a bit of a rebound season. So he's one I'll certainly be watching closely. And then I've only gone with one rookie midfielder. So I've gone Nick Dacos. So for those that don't follow the juniors, well, I'd say think of it this way and you'll be locking Dacos in your team right away. So you've had the likes of Sam Walsh, Matt Rowell. They're around your 30 disposal a game types in the NAB League. So whereas you compare that to a Nick Dacos, and he was good for 35 disposals and 2 goals a game. So you'd be pretty silly to pass on Dacos, frankly. He's a round 1 starter. For me, he's better than Josh already, pretty much. So yeah, not to let him get too far ahead of himself, but he's a really good footballer. And I would be anticipating a prominent midfield role. I haven't been listening to what Collingwood have in mind, but yeah, Collingwood's midfield is extraordinarily thin. So I'm assuming he's playing midfield during the preseason. He is certainly someone that I will be including. And of course, if you've got any rookie-based questions, every player really top to bottom of every list in the competition, I can really talk about in depth. So yeah, just obviously in the comment section below, ask away. On the bench, I've gone Greg Clark, and you could very easily start him on the field. And look, last year, of course, was a midfielders draft for those that have been following me. So you could very easily have a lot of really good rookie midfielders. But I've just decided with, I guess, all the value in terms of both the premiums and mid prices in the midfield. Look, I haven't gone too heavy, but I could very easily put in whether it's a Josh Ward, maybe it's a Jason Horne-Francis. So there's others I could certainly consider for field positions. But look, I just wanted to make the most of that value through the midfielders. I do see quite a bit of real sort of underpriced premiums really across all the lines. So I didn't want to waste that opportunity there. But yeah, as I was saying with Greg Clark, so he was playing in the Waffle. He's one of those guys where he can get you 10 tackles a game and still rack up the footy as well. So yeah, he's certainly one to have well on your radar. He had a fantastic finals series. So certainly one to watch, and he has the potential to be a round 1 starter. So track him closely through the preseason. And then I've got Luke Valenti. So I've gone cheap with the other bench spot. You don't want money sitting on your bench. And look, Valenti is not a guaranteed best 22 by any stretch of the imagination, but let's say Fife isn't round 1 ready. Well, maybe that opens the window for a Valenti to come on in and maybe get some games. So and he's had a number of years in the system. He's ready to go. So we'll have to see there, but Valenti, you could call him a placeholder for now. And there's a few others that I considered for that spot, but ultimately I think he's fine for now. So through the rucks, so there are a few others I considered, but look, I reckon Grundy is quite underpriced. So he had a 106 last year. He could be a captain's option again this year. He's lost a bit of weight over the off-season. I think he's a chance to get back to playing some better footy. So certainly watch closely for Grundy and how he's going. But yeah, look, with his durability, he's at the very least a very safe option there. And he's my number 1 ruck for this year. And then Jared Witt. So obviously just the 3 games last year, but he's someone where he could be one of the top, maybe it's 3, 4, 5 rucks. So he's an underpriced option at the end of the day. I think he can really score quite a way above his price points. So if you don't have him, certainly look at his past scoring, because that might convince you into potentially, at the very least, looking at him. I think he's a sound option, and he was really sort of that first ruck that I locked in right away. And then with Grundy, I thought, yeah, look, I need a higher price premium that I can really rely on. But and then Sam Hayes, I think, is the best option for the bench. And with Port Adelaide, of course, losing Laddams, so Laddams, of course, got moved on. I think Hayes has a chance to appear for Port Adelaide. So he's probably the most likely to appear of the rookie ruck options. So you can lock him in for your bench at this point anyway, unless someone else looms as a more likely option to play at that price point. And then the forwards. So I've gone with the same theme in the forwards. So all these guys, they're underpriced premiums for me. So if you look at Dunkley, well, priced at 91, he can go 100 plus, easy. So you look at Treloar, 87. If he's not averaging 90 plus, I'll be pretty surprised. But of course, durability is what to watch. Cornelio, look, he didn't have a good season, and he hasn't had there's been a few years where he just hasn't really looked like himself. But look, I'm optimistic with the things I'm hearing out of the preseason that he gets back to playing better footy. So at his price point, assuming he's going to be playing a prominent midfield role again, I think he's really quite a good value option personally. And then I've got Heaney and Butters, so you could call them a bit more on the speculative side, but all the things I'm hearing are they're both going to be playing more midfield minutes and really quite prominent midfield roles. So, and at their prices, look, Heaney, that's well under what he's averaged in the past, so I'm expecting quite a lot more from him. And Butters, the same story, where he's just underpriced for what he does, even if he does return to his normal role, because he just didn't look that good sort of when he returned from injury at that sort of back end of the season. So I'm expecting quite a boost. So Butters could go for 100 this year if he's playing through the midfield. So, and he could break out and become one of the very best in the comp. So watch Butters very closely. And then Charlie Curnow. So look, he's had, I guess, a number of years now where he's been hurt. It's been hard getting back. For me, he's just underpriced. So he's not a premium, but he's underpriced for what he offers. He can go up in value. You can flip him. It's a bit like, as you'd say, with maybe a Hanbury and a few others around that sort of price point. So I think there's a real opportunity there, possibly with a Curnow, if he is looking good through the preseason. And then for the bench. So Elijah Hollands, I'm not going to say he's a certain starter for round one, but he's certainly one of the more promising forward rookies. So certainly have him on your radar. Previous top 10 pick, if not for injury in his draft year, he would have been in that almost pick one conversation, probably wouldn't have gone far behind that. So he could have been a top 3 pick potentially, I would have thought, in his draft year if he wasn't injured. So you're looking at that level of talent. So and he should be ready to go going into this year. So again, he's not a lock and load, but certainly one you should have on your radar. And for me, if he's playing, he's probably in my team. Maybe not for field, but certainly for bench, I think he's a good pick. Sam Skinner. So what he was doing in the Sandful in the second half of the year was phenomenal. So first half of the year, he was playing forward. He was only an average forward, and that's where he mostly played for Brisbane too. But switching to defence, he was absolutely fantastic during the second half of the year. And in his second last game of the year, he took, I think it was 10 contested marks, probably about 11 intercept marks in that game. So he's an absolute beast in defence. And I could see him potentially pairing with Alir in defence for Port Adelaide. So he's one to watch. I think he's probably a little better than the likes of a Tom Cleary, perhaps. So I think he's a genuine second sort of key defender. So, and look, he probably takes that deeper option, but he can still intercept. So he is still quite viable because he will still find the footy quite likely. So certainly one to consider, whether it's forward or back. I just put him forward because I slightly... look, I could have had him in either spot. It really depends on how the rookies turn out. And again, during the preseason supplemental period, whether there's anyone more forward or back that needs to be locked in, maybe a Skinner could switch to either end. And then sort of as my, I don't know what you call it in fantasy terms, but I guess reserve player, I've gone with Charlie Comben, where, look, if he's healthy, he's a chance to play games this year. But he could also be that potential, I guess, captain loophole option as well. So having the forward ruck eligibility, it's handy being able to switch him across the two positions. So just having that added versatility and optionality, I think is a real positive for the purposes of this team. So I thought I'd add that in as well. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future updates. And of course, over this off-season, I do have quite a number of additional videos planned, and I will be creating more fantasy and Supercoach videos for those that are interested. So if you've got any particular special requests, I'm open to taking some from the comment section below. And of course, if you've got any, whether it's fantasy or Supercoach questions, I'm more than happy to help out there as well. So because ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm across every player, across every list, because ultimately I don't just watch AFL level, but I watch all the state leagues and I watch all the under 18 and under 19 action as well. So certainly make sure you get behind me if you haven't already. And I'm looking over the coming weeks, months to collaborate with a number of other AFL YouTubers regarding Supercoach and AFL Fantasy. So make sure you watch out for those as well, because I've already had a few requests from some of the bigger names on YouTube. So That should be fun when I have those conversations there. And if you're not aware, I've also started another new channel. So that's Chris Dorry Invests, where I go through, I guess, some investing insights, and I really cover the importance of investing. So I'll leave a link in the description below of both the channel and also my most recent video where I talked to my good friend Matthew Donald covering basically stocks and some general basic investing principles. So I ask him 10 questions. And yeah, that's certainly a good watch if you haven't checked that out already. But anyway, guys, see you in the next video.